This is Jewish Spotlight, a weekly television program presented by Chabad Lubavitch of Long Island, featuring various aspects of modern Jewish life and Jewish culture. Now, here is your host, Rabbi Tuvia Teldin.
Shalom. All of us around the world are very concerned, of course, about what's going on in Israel. The present Intifada is something that torments us as far as the families of so many whose lives are literally ripped apart by terrible terrorist acts, acts of evil, acts that take a family and literally rip it in half for no reason whatsoever, except to, of course, extend their own personal political agendas. Innocent victims are blown to smithereens. Now, all of us have heard about it, all of us have seen it on television, all of us have seen it in the newspapers. But how many of us have reacted to the point where it really hits us in the guts, where we're really willing to go out and do something about it? Do something to the point of leaving our job, do something to the point of raising tremendous amount of funds to help the families of the victims, and to actually go to Israel to meet the families of those victims and be there to show a helping hand and a helping heart. Well, we have with us today two very special people who personally have had the privilege of knowing many, many years. They've been guests of mine in our house for Shabbos. Two people just like yourself, myself, who live in Great Neck, who have a concern and a Jewish heart that's as big as the sky. So I want to introduce you to Susan and Neil Thalhiem. Susan, Neil, it's a pleasure to have you with us in the Jewish Spotlight. And
Thank you.
We look forward to a conversation during the next half hour to find out a little bit about what you've been able to accomplish through your work in Israel, and also a little bit about you, because I think that can be an inspiration to a lot of people. I've had two regular people who just happen to have families, and thank God you have a large family, to be able to decide all of a sudden to go ahead and do what you did. So welcome on board.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Neil, maybe you could share with us, what was it that initially motivated you to make this tremendous change in your life and get involved in the establishment of the Israeli Emergency Solidarity Fund?
Thank you. It quite frankly started with enjoying music, enjoying Shlomo Carlebach music, a famous singer that many people know. We were fortunate enough to attend a concert about a year ago in Manhattan, and there was a particular group of singers who come from Israel,
Right.
Who were neighbors with this very famous singer. And we tried very much to reach this group and invite them to Nassau County to come and make a concert. And this started last fall. We finally were able to reach them, and as it turns out, this group, Thalhiem Soliderity and Sons, were coming to the States, and I had arranged that we thought on a Saturday night after the Shabbat to invite the entire community to come and hear this type of music, hear stories, and it would be a tremendous inspiration. As you may know, we were very interested in having various lectures come to
Right.
the Great Neck community, and this
Right.
followed
So
with that.
What happened when you had them out?
So on October 30th, we got an email from Thalhiem Soliderity. The email basically described his son's bar mitzvah on that Shabbat, on that Saturday. And it was a tremendous event. He had hundreds of people come to the wall in Jerusalem. And it was a tremendous event with tremendous amounts of singing and dancing for hours.
Right.
At the very end of this bar mitzvah, they were informed that their neighbor, Aish Kodesh Gilmore, was shot dead that day, that very morning. And he was at the time the 12th victim of terrorism. He was very close to the family, and his parents were actually at this bar mitzvah. And we received this email,
Unbelievable.
and we felt inspired to change the tone of this concert, rather than just being a concert for the fun of it, to dedicate it in memory of this one individual. He was the first one who touched our lives through this group, Thalhiem Soliderity and Sons. So we decided to dedicate this concert of music and song to the family of Aish Kodesh Gilmore. He was
Right.
a beautiful young man. He was standing in a Social Security building, and a terrorist walked up to him point blank and shot at him.
Just like that.
And he was dead instantly. He left behind a beautiful wife and children. And when we heard this story, we felt this is a tangible act because it was tied in with the concert and tied in with his family, and we knew just how important it was to turn this concert into an
So
event.
the concert became somewhat of a fundraiser in order to be able to raise the money to help these families out.
Exactly. So we decided to go out and reach out to schools and to various community members around the Nassau County region to come to this concert and do more than just listen to music. We invited the father of Hillel Lieberman, who came also to the concert, Rabbi Zvulun Lieberman.
Now, Hillel Lieberman was the rabbi who was killed at the tomb of Joseph in Shechem.
Correct.
Exactly. When we first started this concert, there were 12 terror victims. By the time the concert actually took place in December of last year, in the year 2000, there were approximately 40 individuals.
Now, before you go on, Neil, I want to show everybody in our audience a picture of what you've actually done to really educate the public as to who are the faces of the people who are behind the murders that have taken place in the Intifada. And what you've done is gotten together, this is up to now, of course, maybe 70, 80 names of individuals who are, each one of them, victims of the Intifada. And
Rabbi, I wish it was 70 or 80, but unfortunately it's 115.
115, and that's as of the time of our shooting, of course. And God willing, it'll be only 115, and won't be any more names. But you can see there the names, and then the names and faces, the babies, the people of all ages, all backgrounds. You have there soldiers, you have private individuals, you have, of course, Kahani's son and his wife. You have people from all walks of life, young and old, who have literally been murdered by these crazy, fanatical people who think that it's somehow in their mind, they've come to be able to, through religion, to transform the ultimate evil into what in their mind they think is the ultimate good. Now, how did the family? You, of course, went and you delivered these funds personally.
Right. Well, at the concert, we were inspired, quite frankly, by the singers and by the audience. It was a tremendous rally of support for Israel, and we had many speakers come and educate us. And it was really the heartfelt words of Hillel Lieberman's father. When you hear someone's father firsthand, a very frail, elderly gentleman who came and told the story of his son's love for the country of Israel and going every day to the tomb of Joseph every day and how he was slaughtered, it inspired us to do more than just write a check out and send the proceeds of this concert to Israel.
Okay, Susan,
that's where Sue comes in.
I want to ask you, Susan, you went to Israel, you took the trip. It was just the two of you, or you had other people, of course, going with you?
As you mentioned, we have several children. Thank God our youngest is a baby who was a year old at the time of our visit, and we took him with us.
Okay.
And we met a guide, a friend of ours in Israel, and my nephew, who happened to be learning in Israel during that time. He joined us for this mission also. Correct. And one other person from Great Neck who worked with us on organizing the concert.
Okay, now you went to how many families during the course of that visit?
Over 22.
20 families. Now maybe you can tell us, share a story about maybe any of these families that we have over here on this list over here. Anybody in particular you'd like to tell us about?
I'd first off like to say that the families were very taken aback at the concept that Americans are coming to visit them in their time of Shiva, or sitting after the mourning, after the loss of their loved one, or some days or weeks after the loss of their loved one. They sort of couldn't understand the concept that these people don't know us, they're coming from afar, they're arriving, a strange group, and they want to come and comfort us. They were very, very taken aback by this idea,
allowed you in their house.
But in a very positive way.
Right.
Almost all not only allowed us in their homes, they welcomed us with the most beautiful and gracious hospitality. And there were visits that were tearful, and there were visits that were very inspiring. It really
must have been an absolutely incredible experience for both of you.
It was a tremendous experience for us, and it was a very intense experience for us. We went only during the course of 4 nights and 5 days, visiting all over the country.
Right.
And we had our guide call and speak Hebrew to the families before we arrived and mention that we wanted to come and ask their permission, and almost everybody did want to meet us. There was one family that said, "I can't believe these people exist. Send them to me, please. I have to see for myself."
Right.
And what happened is, being in the homes of these people, we felt like family. I'm fortunate enough to have relatives who live in Israel and friends, and when we left that trip, I feel like I have even more family in Israel than I ever knew that I did, because we really felt very, very bonded and connected right away. And we felt very privileged to hear the stories of their loved ones. It's very, very clear that whoever was murdered and killed was a very special person across the board and came from very special families. It doesn't make the loss any less difficult for that family, but we felt like we were really in the presence of unique and special individuals.
I think it's very hard for us here in America, for anybody in the audience, to even begin to put ourselves, of course, in the position of people in Israel in general, no less, of course, these people who have been actual victims. But to be able to feel how people live with that black cloud over their heads constantly, day in and day out, sending your children off to school and not knowing what's going to happen when they go to school, or when they're going to be on the bus, or let's say anybody in Efrat, or in the other towns in the West Bank, or in other areas. It's an absolutely
Well, that's one
difficult.
of the misperceptions. That when we started this project, many people felt that the people being killed, the Israelis killed, were extreme right-wing settlers living in very
Couldn't be further
remote
from the truth, of course.
neighborhoods, and many people didn't really know the truth. And as time has gone on, over the last 6 months, it's become more and more clear that every citizen of Israel has now become victimized, whether they've already had some terror attack in their town.
Sure.
Almost everybody knows somebody who does, and it's stretched beyond the boundaries of the settlements of Israel. It's gone clearly to the major cities.
Right. I had somebody, an Israeli, well, really an American couple that I know. They made Aliyah to Israel. They were back in Comac, and they came to visit us. We had this poster hanging up in our Chabad house, and they were pointing out, well, this one we know of. This is a cousin to somebody who's a friend of ours. This one, of course, was a doctor who had taken care of somebody we know a few years ago. This one, and people in Israel is a relatively small country, so people know each other. Either a friend has a friend or hear about it, and when tragedies like this happen, of course, the ripple effect is unbelievable, and it has a tremendous effect on the whole psyche of the country. So when people hear about the anger and the feeling for retribution, or the feeling for really giving the Palestinians a message that we're not going to tolerate this, people have to understand that this is coming from such a deep place, and the emotions are so intense. And of course, politics is politics, but there is a tremendous amount of negative energy that this has created amongst the feelings of most Israelis for the Palestinians, and they're only human.
There are many people with whom we've spoken who said that they used to think that there was a chance that whatever Israel was doing was worth it for the sake of peace. Many, many, many of them have come around and realized there is no chance of peace with terrorists.
Well, please, tell us a couple of stories of the encounters you had. Maybe you can pick out a couple of these faces and give a little bit of a background behind it, because now seeing the faces, of course, has a personal effect, I think, on all of us, but knowing the story behind the face will do a lot more to make it more personalized. Is there anybody in particular you want us to focus on?
In the fourth row, the fourth picture in, it's a black and white photo of a young woman named Shoshana Reese.
Okay, fourth row. Shoshana Reese died on November 22nd, the year 2000. Yes.
And she was only 22 years old. We met her parents. They were Russian immigrants, living in Israel for some years, and they tearfully told us what happened. The daughter was at the pizza shop on the main drag in Hadera, a regular city in the middle of Israel. And Shoshana was on the cell phone with her mother, just having a regular schmooze the way any of us would with any of our kids when they're out and about. And the way she related, her mother related the story, that Shoshana, she didn't get a chance to say goodbye to her. Shoshana said to her, "See you later." And before her mother could have asked, "What time will you be home tonight, dear?" the connection was dead. But living close by in an apartment near the main street where this bomb rippled through, Shoshana's mother heard the tremors and felt the shakes and heard the sirens that went immediately to the scene where her daughter was killed.
Unbelievable.
And there's another 20-year-old sister in that family and a 16-year-old sister in that family, and they were completely devastated by this loss.
Sure.
Completely.
Sure.
And Shoshana had been in the pizza shop with her best friend when that happened, and her best friend had both her legs blown off. She was burned severely over most parts of her body. She was on a respirator when we saw her in the intensive care unit. She was barely able to survive, but she's coming along now.
Now you have one family over here that there's a father and a son as well. Arya Hershkowitz died on January 29th, 2001. He was killed, I believe, by snipers.
Right.
And I think it was on the same road. His son, Asaf Hershkowitz, was also killed. And
That's
Asaf
correct.
was already a father with a family.
Correct.
And
After
this
the
is an
murder,
unbelievable tragedy for one family to experience within such a
All
short
of
period of
Israel,
time.
I feel, felt the pain of Geula Hershkowitz, the mother and wife who suffered two losses. It was a tremendous experience for all of Israel to understand that one family could be struck twice. And I'll just say an inspiring word, which is on our last trip, our very last day in Israel, we had lunch with Geula Hershkovich. She came to where we were staying, and she came also with her entire family. And she was very up. She told us time and time again she was not going to be brought down by this. And she wanted to know what she could do to help us help other families.
100%.
Unbelievable.
And we had described to her, for example, she's a teacher. We described to her a project that we can talk about later, a simple project where we're asking children all over America to make a Rosh Hashanah card for the children of Israel. And we'll be presenting this around Rosh Hashanah time this coming year. She wanted to work to any extent in her region in Israel to get the kids there to be part of this project, to help plan it, to help visit other families. She will not be brought down by this.
Where does a woman like this get her inner strength? Did you speak with her, Susan, as far as what makes her tick? What is it?
I can't say that I'd have an answer other than her fervent belief that there will be an end to these problems and that there really will be a redemption. There will come a time when there is only peace. Her name, Geula, means redemption.
Right.
And she has a little boy named 11, who's 11 years old, whose name is Dor. And Dor means generation. When we asked her, we had met her, incidentally, after the murder of her husband, but before her son was killed. So shortly after we left Israel, within the next week or two, her son was murdered, and then we renewed our contact with her by telephone and by mail. When we asked her what we could do to help, and if there's any message she wants us to help give the country, she said, what I'd like more than anything is if we could print a bumper sticker that has those two words on it, Dor LeGeula. This is the generation of redemption.
And of course that means that we hope and pray for Mashiach to come.
That's exactly what it means.
And to tell you the truth, I think more and more people now are getting to the point where they feel like the only possible solution for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has to come straight from God, because politicians and us human beings are not in a position to be able to resolve this. This is just a conflict that goes far beyond anything any human being could possibly resolve.
That's right. Leadership has changed within Israel over the course of the months that this has been going on, and many people have come to see we can't rely on any human leader. It's really God that we need to turn to. And we found people across Israel when we went visiting, and as the poster shows, white, black, young, old, secular, religious, civilian, soldier, we found across the board that people were murdered because they're Jews or they're Israeli living in Israel.
Right.
And that is what unified these holy people in their death, and what will unify us all in peace, God willing.
Right.
Is
now, on your screen now, you see the third row from the top. You see, of course, the 7 soldiers, I think, that were killed at one spot immediately. There's a soldier saluting at the beginning of the row.
At the time that we had made our visits, there had only been people killed, one here, one there, one here. And after our trip, sometime after that, when all of a sudden the news hit that a Palestinian bus driver slammed into a group of soldiers and civilians waiting at a junction.
Right. And that was the person who had security clearance.
Correct. He had security clearance, and he slammed into the group and killed 8 people in one shot. It was very, very devastating. And it's only gotten worse since then. There have been other incidents with bombings in Netanya where 5 killed at once, and Tel Aviv disco, where, including deaths from wounds, there have been 20 killed. And it's just beyond any proportion that anybody can fathom.
Right.
But what we try to do as an entity, and this is what's so inspiring, it keeps us going, is when we meet with a family and hear these terrible stories, and we come to them with letters from children, words of inspiration, ideas how Americans can help. We sit down and we brainstorm with them.
Really?
We talk about what is it their family needs, what small amount of comfort can we bring to them. Can it be a project that memorializes their son or their daughter? Can it be some project in their school that perhaps there was one of these soldiers was a great basketball teacher, and they very much wanted to develop a program teaching basketball to young children. Almost all the families wanted to work with us to pick a project to memorialize their children or their parents. And each one is unique, and it gives them hope, it gives them inspiration. Sue mentioned before the story of Shoshana Reese and her younger sister. I'll just mention that one of the projects that we have taken on with this family, sponsored by Americans who worked hard at raising funds in walkathons and other types of projects that we helped to put together after our trips to Israel, their younger daughter found a book of poetry that Shoshana had written when she was
Really?
13 or 14 years old. And the family felt it would be a very important project for their sister, who was extremely depressed after this tragic event, to take this book of poetry and have the family work together on editing it and publishing it and distributing it to school children in Israel.
Right.
So the Israel Emergency Solidarity Fund, in conjunction with all the help of the people in New York who work very hard on this, took on this project, and we sponsored the publication of this book. And there are dozens of stories like that. We've met with now close to 70 families through our trips, and have been in touch with about another 30 through our representatives in Israel. So we've made relationships with close to 100 families,
now,
and each one of them has a project that we work on with them.
Right. Now, the movement that you started, pretty much single-handedly, this is spread basically, and it's one of those movements, I think, that found a spot in the heart of so many people that wanted to be able to express their pain in some way, and you created the vessel for them to, of course, pour that generosity into.
That's exactly as it is, and that's been very gratifying to us as our efforts expanded and as people began to be aware of the plight of the terrorist victims in Israel through our advertising and through our speaking in schools and through our walkathons. Donations and letters of support poured in from across the country.
It's from non-Jews and Jews alike.
Exactly.
From people of all backgrounds.
All backgrounds, all ages. Sometimes we received pennies, the contents of a child's charity box. Sometimes we received very generous checks. You know, sometimes a very small amount with an explanation. I wish I could give more, but I care so much. I hope this helps. We receive blessings from non-Jews wishing that God would end this trouble.
That would be the greatest blessing of all, of course. But the monies that you're raising are going, let's say, to these individual projects, are also going to direct financial support for some of the families, because as a result, either fathers, or breadwinners, or whoever it might be, is causing a lot of suffering.
The Israeli government, the Social Security offices provide for the basic needs of the families when they've been victimized by terror. But what we've been able to do through the Israel Emergency Solidarity Fund is A, send a message of caring, which nobody can put a value upon. It means the world to them. And B, to fill in financially in ways in which the Israeli government doesn't. We've been able to, let's say, sponsor the bat mitzvah celebration of a girl whose father was killed, or to provide a bus for the guests of a man whose father was killed to attend his wedding in safety. We've bought toys and furniture, literally a bed for a man who didn't have a bed to sleep on.
Sometimes it's those little things which make such a big difference.
We went to families asking for a wish list of things, and in certain cases it was a dishwasher. It was another case, it was a laptop computer for a woman who lost both of her legs, was trapped in bed, and wanted so much to be interacting and
in touch with the world.
And the gift of this computer, a laptop computer, which we take for granted now. Everyone here seems to be able to have access to it so easily. This meant the world to this woman, and we have now, reached out to dozens of other families who haven't just been killed. We found a huge burden on those that have been severely wounded, and there are literally hundreds of them. I read a report today that the Israeli government published that there's been 5,300 terror attacks in Israel since last Rosh Hashanah.
5,300?
5,300 terror attacks, resulting in the death of 115 Israelis, the wounding of 600 or 700 seriously wounded with lifelong, serious wounds. 5,300 attempts, meaning bombings, shootings at cars, serious rock throwing attempts, and we should be thankful, very thankful that the numbers have remained. There have been very many miraculous stories of very, very close calls where bombs were found at the very last minute. Many of these go unreported, but they are true miracles that have happened time and time again, and particularly in the last several months.
Incredible.
Part of our goal was to make this into a human, passionate story of bringing these stories, which don't get reported, quite frankly, in the media. It takes a certain critical number of deaths before the major secular media will report it. And our goal was to make this into a human-to-human story. And that's why I'm a photographer. As a child, I was a photographer, very active in Long Island. I had one of my first pictures published in Newsday. I was a sports photographer, so it meant a lot to me to deal with photography and computers. And when I first saw some of the very first few faces, I said, why haven't I seen these faces? Why it's been a little clipping here, 2 weeks later another clipping, and that's why I felt the need to take this idea of bringing this down
definitely had a tremendous effect. I think when
human
people
level.
see this poster, there's no question of the effect it has.
Sure.
And let me ask you also, if anybody wants to get in touch with you or offer some type of assistance of any kind, how do they get in touch with you? They send us something, send a letter to Israel Emergency Solidarity Fund.
Right. Our address is in Great Neck, 98 Cutter Mill Road. That's 98 Cutter Mill Road.
Cuttermill Road.
Great Neck, New York. 11021 is the zip code. Or if they want to call us, we get literally dozens of calls a day. I'll just mention that this poster, we've published over 150,000 copies of this poster.
Really?
And it's been distributed through temples, through schools, through community centers, across the country.
And you're putting a tremendous amount of your personal money into this also.
And Europe. Well,
besides the fact that you've left your job temporarily to be able to do this. So
exactly. I run a stock trading business and have been very blessed and have the ability of focusing on a need that I can't pass. I know my children one day may ask me, what did we do when Israel was at risk? And I know that many of our parents went to bat for important causes in our heritage, and we felt the need to do our share. And the response we've gotten from the dozens of people has inspired us and kept us going.
Well, I know that the two of you have inspired a lot of people and moved a lot of hearts and a lot of ballots and a lot of different people who were moved but didn't know what to do with that feeling. And I thank you for being able to provide for so many thousands and tens of thousands of people that opportunity to be able to funnel their tremendous sense of compassion for the victims and for the Israeli families in such a way. So for that, we are very thankful, and we all hope and pray, of course, that was, as Gula said, that Mashiach should be here very soon, and that the true solution, the true peace in Israel should be able to come very soon. I want to thank you very much for being with us today and with being part of the show and this Jewish show, and we hope for the future to be able to see you for good occasions. And then just in concluding, I just want to say also, of course, you've seen the pictures, you saw the faces. These are not just statistics. These are not just names of people. These are actual families, children, just like you have children and I have children, but children happen to be in the wrong place in the wrong time, who happen to be standing next to a person who wants to kill himself and blow up as many people together with him. This is a concept that we in a Western culture cannot even begin to understand. But the fear, of course, that it puts into everybody's heart is absolutely incredible. And the compassion we need to show and the support we need to show. Go to Israel. Support the Israeli people. Do whatever you can to call somebody you might know in Israel. Tell them you're behind them 100%. Show them your solidarity with what's going on and the cause that the Jewish people have, which is a cause that dates back to the beginning of creation. That we should be able to establish a state, a place, a world that is going to be a place of peace and a place where brothers can get along with each other and live together in peace. Until next week, take care. We'll see you then. Shalom.